We go into innovation discovery thinking it's that lightning strike, it's that moment of genius where the dots just connect. That's innovation. And it's totally not. It is the 99.9% of the sweat and effort that comes after that. That is the biggest thing that comes up again and again. To really innovate, you've got to find other people that want to do it too, because that's where the magic happens.
That's JoAnn Garbin. She's served as Microsoft's Director of Innovation, where she guided her team in developing billion-dollar opportunities. Now, she's the co-author of the new book, The Insider's Guide to Innovation at Microsoft. JoAnn's got a lot of juicy stories to share, and you'll learn 1, what most people overlook about innovation, 2, the secret to getting executives on board, and 3, the 4 patterns responsible for Microsoft's innovation success. And if you'd like a quick summary write-up of the actionable takeaways that JoAnn shared, I recommend you sign up for the free Gold Nugget email newsletter, which you can find over at awesomeatyourjob.com. I'm Pete Makaitis. This is How to Be Awesome at Your Job. And now, here's JoAnn. JoAnn, welcome.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to talk innovation, and I want to hear your backstory. I understand one of your earliest tech innovations occurred at a mascot cooling system company. Tell us the whole tale, please.
Well, it was my company, brave 22-year-old that I was, and it was an innovation that came out of being a mascot. And if you, which I've heard a rumor that you were a mascot, if you've ever been in a mascot suit, you know that it takes about 2 minutes before you're completely overheated. And I was a mechanical engineering student, and I was like, I can solve this problem. So what turned into a senior project with some friends, then after school became my first company. And I actually managed to sell a few, which was really cool, including to the Seattle Seahawk, which, full circle, I live in Seattle now.
Well, I was a mascot way back in maybe 7th grade, 8th grade. I was the Holy Family Hornet.
Ooh.
So I don't think I ever got crazy hot because I was mostly at basketball games inside air-conditioned gyms, as opposed to being in a brutally hot outside baseball, football stadium. Whew.
Yeah. And you were in 7th grade, and we seem to be able to tolerate anything when we're kids.
Yes, that too. So how's the cooling system work?
It was a passive system, which today when I look at the tech we use, so this is early 90s, as students, we reached out to DuPont, and they had just come up with this new fanciful material called wicking material, which is now in every sports garment you wear. And we reached out to this Danish company that had something better than ice, what's called a phase change material, which is essentially a salt that has a higher capacity to absorb heat. Phase change materials today are also in everything. Like you can get a cooling vest for your dog that from like Chewy or the local pet store. That is essentially what my classmates and I designed in the early 90s.
That's intriguing. And just because I'm full of curiosity, we'll get into how it could be more innovative shortly. But a phase change material. So does that mean it changes phase from solid to liquid at a different temperature, or it takes more total energy to pull off the phase change, or both?
Both. And so the practical advantages of it is that if I put ice packs against my skin and then put a mascot suit on, that ice melts, and now you're in minutes, and now you're carrying around pockets of water on top of already having this heavy suit on. But this salt pack that we found back then, if you put it in the Gatorade cooler on the football bench, so just iced water, essentially, it would refreeze. And then
Oh, yeah.
because it had a higher capacity to absorb heat, you could wear it for 2 or 3 times longer than an ice pack before you needed to refreeze it.
That's cool. Well, now I'm thinking about coolers these days. I mean, boy, they got the Yeti cooler and so much more in terms of the Oyster Tempo cooler. I've seen you can spend a lot of money on a cooler these days. I'm curious about like the ice packs that go inside them. It sounds like we could probably do a lot better than ice, but I don't see much stuff, according to America's Test Kitchen, that freezing packs are performing any better than just normal ice.
Ah, I haven't done the research since the early 90s. But I do know, like, I get meal kits delivered,
Yeah.
half a dozen meals a week so that I eat. And it comes with non-ice packs.
Yeah, the gel stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the really cool ones are the kind that once they thaw, they're biodegradable and non-toxic. So you can just pour them down the sink. So now you don't have this massive collection of ice packs. Oh, we could talk all day about packaging innovation. I'm a total packaging nerd, but I would venture to bet that a lot of those gels are phase change materials.
Well, I am your packaging nerd. I'm a packaging sucker. I go, oh, that looks pretty. It must be a great product. Like, that's what they want you to think, Pete. Be critical thinker.
Well, that's why Yeti can charge what they charge.
That's right.
It's not that dramatically different than a regular cooler. It just has the brand appeal of being a brand of mountaineers. And this is marketing innovation. How can I make you feel like a mountaineer? I can sell you the same cooler the mountaineer uses.
I remember I was with my buddy who's a long-term Nike employee. And we were at the Nike employee store, which is fun because he's got a big old discount. And I said, oh, I really like this backpack. And it has these grooves in the back. And I wonder if that would facilitate airflow to cool my back down a little when I'm, walking on a hot day and I got all that backpack sweat. And he just said, do you perceive it too? I was like, that's your whole game, isn't it?
That is a big part of it in a lot of products.
Do you perceive it too? Okay, well, we're talking more broadly and hopefully actionably about innovation. And boy, you've spent decades directing innovation and teaching it and consulting on it. So can you share with us, for starters, what's one of the most surprising or counterintuitive discoveries you've made in your career about how innovation happens?
This is something that it pops up every time I start a company, I join a company, I have a crazy idea and I start executing, but it really shone through in the book Case Studies, The Insider's Guide to Innovation at Microsoft. Dean Carignan and I, we studied all these cases across Microsoft history. And time and again, we go into innovation discovery thinking it's that lightning strike. It's that moment of genius where the dots just connect. That's innovation. And it's totally not. It is the 99.9% of the sweat and effort that comes after that. That is the biggest thing that comes up again and again throughout innovation that doesn't surprise me so much anymore, but I think it does surprise people because we just get sold, again, perception is everything. We get sold the story that it's the genius idea or the lightning bolt, but it's actually execution. So Dean and I set out to write a book on how to innovate. And one of the major themes that came out of it is it's all about execution.
Okay. And what is that? Was that Edison, the famous quotation, a genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. So execution is where it's at and understood. Well, then tell us, what are some of the key places folks go wrong when they're executing? Oh, we got a cool idea. Let's go make it happen. What are some of the common pitfalls?
Ooh, there's so many missteps to be made. And then there's just bad luck, bad timing, bad environment. But if we look at the things we can control, one of the hardest things for the person with the insight or the idea to accept is that it won't be so obvious to everyone else. Just because you have connected the dots and are so psyched about this doesn't mean your boss will be, your coworkers will be, your vendors or suppliers will be. And you have to recognize that it does take all of those people to bring something into the world. There's a great quote in the book by the head of the developer division at Microsoft, Julia Lucen. And she says, if your idea hasn't made it into the world and isn't changing someone's life, it's not innovation. It's just a cool idea. So when you frame it that way and realize just how many people it takes, the very first thing you have to do is get them excited about the big vision. Once you do that, and that's not engineering, that's storytelling, that's passion, that's meeting people where they're at and connecting into what wakes them up in the morning and gets them out of bed, not what gets you out of bed. So there's a whole mechanism and process and tools for doing that. Marketers know this. This is how they get us to buy the Yeti cooler. You got to tap into that skill set very early on so that you get the people you need on side with you. And then you gotta give them a path forward. You can't keep people bought in for the long run on a hope and a prayer, right? You have to lay down stepping stones, little wins, quick value creation, things that return investment to the company right away, but are in the direction of your big idea so that you can point to it and say, look what we just did. Isn't that great? We're on our way. And then you do the next one. And those stepping stones give you the confidence and your teammates the confidence that you might actually get to that horizon point you laid out.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And talking about that marketing skill set, it seems that many of the top, luminaries, visionaries, billionaires at the heads of tech companies that are super famous, that seems to be one of the top things they do is like the storytelling and the framing of their thing. I'm thinking about the TV series Silicon Valley. It's almost sort of like a joke. It's like, and we're changing the world. And it's like, oh, okay, well, it's a website and people, post their pictures and stuff. It's like, okay, we're changing the world to be more connected. Yeah. And so it sounds lofty. And yet at the same time, this storytelling, this framing, it seems to do the trick for investors and for users and for customers to hop on board.
Yeah. It's how we've communicated since the beginning of humanity. We've told stories. And there's plenty of science and research to support it. Actually, one of my friends just has a new book out called Primal Intelligence by Angus Fletcher. And he's a neuroscientist and what he calls a professor of story thinking. And he breaks down why we respond so strongly to stories and how to construct stories to get people bought in and moving along with you, whether that's external marketing or internal rallying for the troops and innovation.
Okay, well, can you share with us any top tips or stories about stories that really got the job done?
Yeah, one of the favorite examples is the original Nike Just Do It commercial. So if you remember, it was an octogenarian, an 80-year-old marathon runner. And when the commercial starts, they zoom in and he's running across the Golden Gate Bridge. And he's shirtless and he's got this big tattoo on, but he's this older man. And you're already like, what is even happening here? But you're brought right into the middle of the action. And then they back up and they explain, here is this 80-year-old marathon runner who runs 17 miles a day, but he didn't start running until he was 70. Just do it. And now your brain's going, oh, what do I want to just do? What's my future? How do I get there? If he can run 17 miles a day at 80, I can do it too.
Oh, yeah. I like that. It is. And primal, I think, is the word. It goes beyond an intellectual understanding of, oh, yes, it's possible, even for someone who is elderly, to embark upon ambitious endeavors. And it's more of a, oh, yeah, let's get after it.
Yeah. Angus knows I love his book, so highly recommend diving into storytelling, story thinking, and all the tools around it.
Oh, it was super. Thank you. Well, so could you share with us perhaps the big idea in your book, The Insider's Guide to Innovation at Microsoft?
Yes, of course. Dean and I set out. We're both innovators at Microsoft. I was leading the Data Center of the Future program in our cloud business. And my background is really as a repeat entrepreneur, figuring out a problem I want to solve, building a team, going out and trying to solve it. So I came into Microsoft, this big organization. I'm like, how the heck does innovation happen here? I'm in an innovation role and nobody can tell me how it happens here for real. So sought out Dean, we got to know each other. And as we started trading what we joke are war stories about innovation, because it's often a rebel cause or a battle, we started seeing that we had a lot more in common than different. So that set us on this path of there must be common principles and tools and processes and insights that just cut across industry, time, and business model, right? So we set out to talk to as many innovators from past and present Microsoft as we could. The company just turned 50, so there was just this massive history of stuff we could dig into. And we came out, that was our hypothesis. We're going to uncover these commonalities. So that's what we set out for. And we were very pleased that it showed to be true. We ended up finding 4 big patterns of innovation. And we broke it down into everyday things you do over the years to be continuously and adaptively innovative, how you innovate with everyone, which goes back to that storytelling, and then everything beyond technology, because too often we think about the light bulb and we don't think about the marketing and the pricing and the supply chain, and all of those things matter. So within those 4 patterns, we identify a set of tools and a way to put them into use together to go from what we call nothing to something to scale.
Mm-hmm. And could you give us the 1-minute version of what are each of these 4 big patterns? 1 minute each-ish. No pressure.
So I've read the book a few times. Everyday stuff is building up habits. So you'll hear this from coaches and leaders alike in all walks of life, musicians, artists, professional sports player, anybody that has become a master of their craft, they will talk about the habits that they form and that they practice every day so that what they're doing isn't something they have to write a checklist to do or think about doing. It's just how they function. So the first pattern of every day is how do you do that as an individual, but also how do you build that habit building cycle into your organization? Because it's one thing for you to be doing discovery by design as an individual. It's another thing if you have your entire company doing discovery by design. Or another one is double loop learning, where you don't just iterate on the solution to whatever problem you're solving, but you iterate on the assumptions that you've made about the solution. So the whole toolbox just to that. Over the years is great. You have all these habits now and you have all these ideas. But if you've paid attention at all, disruption comes all the time. So the idea that you've set out 5 years ago is either dead or dying right now. It's just not going to be what you can run your company on. So we spend a whole chapter talking about that pattern of continuous innovation. It's the theme of the cover of the book, which looks like an infinity. And we talk about both how to stay on that curve and keep going around and around so that you, like Microsoft, can say you're 50 years old and have done it a few times. But we also talk about how you get kicked off the curb and you end up in the very deep pool of companies and great ideas that came, died, and disappeared. Then we have innovating with everyone. And I think, Dean and I talk about this. This is probably the most important of the four because it takes so many people to bring something into reality. And that's recognizing that change is hard, that most people are not pioneers or cliff divers or adrenaline junkies that want to be the first one out on the big wave or whatever. So you got this whole group of people in your company. You've got to figure out what moves them and how to speak to them in their terms and how to connect with them and bring them into your idea so that it's their idea too. And then finally, is the last one, we have this predisposition to think that innovation is technology, but there's lots of books beyond ours that talk about all the innovations that have happened throughout history. Most of the value has been created by everything upstream and downstream of the innovation. Simple example, Uber or Lyft, these rideshare companies. They didn't create new cars, new scooters, new bicycles. They created a new business model in the sharing economy and how to connect people to the mode of transportation that they need. That's not technology. Like their applications aren't all that wild. It was thinking through the problem from a different angle. There are all these aspects to innovation, and that fourth chapter goes into that.
Okay. Well, let's perhaps zoom into a typical professional, mid-level at a mid-sized company, not necessarily a tech giant. And they would like more cool, innovative stuff to be happening more often. Do you have any top do's and don'ts you'd suggest for right away today?
Yes. First thing is you have to find your tribe. You've got to find other people looking to fix something that you think needs fixing. There is a lot you can do. You got to make time for learning and exposing yourself to what other companies are doing and the new science or tech or marketing, or that you can do on your own. But to really innovate, you've got to find other people that want to do it too, because that's where the magic happens. Right now, it's Hack Week at Microsoft. So 70,000 plus Microsoft people are coming together in hackathon to go from idea to prototype in 1 week. That started way back before Satya was CEO. He's the CEO that brought hackathon into being. But before he existed, a bunch of people that just felt like the company wasn't innovating enough at their level, at that mid-level. It was all like big guys coming up with ideas and passing it down the chain for execution. This group started what has now become the garage, but they called it a speakeasy. And they would just get together and they would brainstorm and they would prototype and they would try things and they would bring other people in and tap into everybody's skills to propose solutions to problems they saw every day. Again, practice, right? So they started innovating by innovating. So find a problem you want to solve, find some friends that want to solve it too, and just start trying to solve it. Then there's the other side of it. No matter if you're in anything other than a solo company, you've got to get buy-in from leadership. And every single case study, we've studied everything I've ever done in my career and Dean's career. You have to have the executive champion. Big, especially the bigger the initiative, the more important that becomes. So if you're going to do the speakeasy in your organization, only push that rock up a mountain so far before you find your executive champion who can pull it to the top, because otherwise it gets a bit exhausting to keep pushing against what everybody else is looking to the leadership for what's important.
Okay. Now, in your book, you have many case studies. Could you share which story do you think is perhaps the most illustrative and full of actionable wisdom for everyday folks looking to be awesome at their jobs? And can we hear that tale?
Everybody loves the Xbox story. The Xbox story is one of innovating culture. And what's really cool about that one is that at the time, this little team was challenged with creating gaming at Microsoft. Actually, two teams were spun up to do it and one won out. That was the Bill Gates, Steve Ballmer way, is put people head to head and see who wins. But it was a productivity company. It was SQL Server. It's cubicles and pocket protectors. And it's not the thrill and the excitement of a gaming company. So this group of people from the very outset had to overcome a cultural disconnect with the rest of the company. And they've had to do that 4 more times, if not more, since then, because of all the industries we deal with, gaming has changed the most and fastest. It's always on the cutting edge of tech. It's always using the fastest processors and doing the most incredible things. And so this little group of folks back in the day, they first had to challenge the perceived, like things like Bill Gates saying, I want this to obviously run on Windows. Our gaming platforms is going to be a Windows platform. And this group of people saying to Bill Gates, no, can't run on Windows. Windows is too bloated and slow. Nobody will want to play our games. So those types of challenges are just so fascinating that you see in practice how having that tight-knit group of people that are passionate and productive in solving the problem can convince somebody like Bill Gates to invest in them. One of my favorite pieces is in the early days, they had this role, this middle management role called the business unit manager. And that person owned
the bums, if you will.
The bums. I love that it was called the bums. And they had profit and loss control, right? Like, so each one of them had their own little fiefdom, their own little business. And Robbie Bach, who was the head of gaming at that point, looked at it and said, they're all preserving their own fiefdom. They're not working together because they want their P&L to look the best, get the biggest bonus, et cetera, et cetera. So he blew it up and he said, we're going to have one P&L, the gaming P&L. And they got rid of the bums. And that changed everything at a critical moment for the organization to be able to come together and innovate it cohesively moving forward without the inner competition between the teams. And they didn't know, it was an experiment. They didn't know if those senior leaders used to having P&L responsibility would be okay with it being taken away from them. And once they put it out there and they did the storytelling and the reasons why, and they brought people along, all but one bum transitioned, one left.
Well, and I'm also recall, I saw a YouTube video about the history of the Xbox. I have all sorts of fun little memories associated with, I don't know why, I guess it really left an impression. When Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was on stage with Bill Gates and they presented the first Xbox. But I heard that in one of the meetings, a transformational moment to the point about storytelling and talking about what people really, really value and what moves them is I heard, and tell me the inside scoop here, that Bill Gates was kind of on the fence, like, okay, maybe, yeah. And then someone said, what about Sony? And then that was pretty transformational in terms of like, well, we can't let Sony just take this. Let's go. Yeah, we got to do it. And so just like that, can you share about that?
Yes. So if you remember the old Microsoft mission statement, it was a personal computer in every home and office. Well, they were doing great with the work and they were doing great at home to a certain extent. PCs were leading the way. However, you have Sony all of a sudden, and they own the gaming console, the TV, the radio. Like all of a sudden, the living room is starting to be Sony's world. And what Bill and Steve Ballmer heard from the team was, all right, if you don't want to do this for the opportunity, how about fear? Sony owns the living room. How long is it going to take them to move into the home office? And that little nugget, that little insight was enough, I'm sure, among a few other things, to get them over the hurdle and say, oh, that's an existential threat. And we actually saw that come up in other case studies as well, like the Bing case study. I love the Bing team. I am their biggest fan. After I heard their story, just blown away by what they were able to do for the company that nobody even knows about. But one of the biggest things that answered a question that I long had is, why does Bing exist? Like, if Google owns 90% of search pre-AI, why does Microsoft keep investing in Bing? But it was for the same reason they started gaming. Google owning all of search with no competition biting at their heels, that's a bad thing for everybody. So Microsoft has stayed in to just be a thorn in the side of Google for all these years, chewing away 0.5% of the market share at a time, so that Google couldn't just say, oh, well, we won search, let us go win productivity and let us go win these other markets that are the Microsoft bread and butter.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting. The notion of winning, dominance, influence, power is like it's a theme or a force or a motivator. I guess it's primal, it's emotional and present within some of the leadership there at Microsoft. And then I guess another theme is the being able to just jettison the old stuff that wasn't working. Because my understanding now in the world of gaming, like Microsoft, as far as I know, is winning big with like the Game Pass and the monthly subscription. And part of that was they have chilled out a lot on the notion of we have to have these exclusive titles because we have to have them by the Xbox because they want the coolest games that are only available on Xbox. And now it's shifted a bit to, yeah, we kind of don't care what device you're bringing to the table. We would just love for you to have a subscription to all these games, whether you're playing them on an iPad or a TV or an Xbox or anything. And it seems to be financially working out quite well.
Yes. And again, this is business model innovation, right? This isn't technology. It's actually decreasing the emphasis on the tech itself, because consoles, there's only so many you can sell. There's only so much diffusion of that tech out into the world. And as Phil says in the book, Phil Spencer, the CEO of gaming, when you have 3 billion gamers, is there one device or one business model that is going to be affordable and enjoyable to everyone? No. And in fact, most games to this day are played on PC or laptops and mobile, not consoles. So it takes a lot of really good innovation discipline to look at your prized thing, like in this case, a console, and say, you got us here. You got us to 100 million players or maybe even 500 million players, but you're not going to get us to 3 billion players. So how do we get those 3 billion? And flipping those questions around, and it's not, how do we get more people to play our games on our consoles? It's how do we get into the hands of 3 billion players? Well, let them play games anywhere. Let them play any game. Let them play games with their friends that aren't on the same technologies. So when you turn the problem around and really focus on how to win the gamer, not win the console war, it changes what you bring to market.
Well, JoAnn, tell me any final quick tips, tricks, do's, don'ts before we hear about some of your favorite things?
I'm going to steal from another friend who I think is brilliant, Michael Gervais. Michael Gervais has a show called Finding Mastery, and he's the former advisor to the Seattle Seahawks, a theme that keeps coming up. And he's a sports psychologist for high performance. And again, we can learn a lot looking at professional athletes because they're the top of their field. And it's about breaking it down, like if you have an intention or a purpose, your life purpose, that's overwhelming. But if you can take that life purpose or intention and bring it back to what's my purpose today, and then live into that. Tomorrow, what's my purpose today? Live into that. And then gradually build that up into a weekly habit, monthly habit, annual habit. This is the same thing we see in the innovation world of if my first instinct becomes curiosity, not assumption, ask more questions, don't try to answer things right away. I'm going to be a better innovator because that's just habit. So I would say take whatever big thing you're trying to do, bring it back down to those stepping stones or what Michael calls the thin slices, and just start stacking them and make progress. And then congratulate yourself on the progress that you're making because that matters. You need to own up to what you do, both good and bad.
Big thanks to JoAnn for sharing her wisdom with us. And big thanks to our sponsors. Check them out. One sponsor to check out is Vanguard. For all the financial advisors listening, let's talk bonds for a minute. Capturing value in fixed income is not easy. Bond markets are massive, murky, and a lot of firms will just throw a couple flashy funds your way and call it a day. But not Vanguard. Vanguard bonds provide top-grade products across the board. Their lineup includes over 80 bond funds actively managed by a 200-person global squad of sector specialists, analysts, and traders. Vanguard's been in the game for a long time at a scale that gives them a serious edge. They're able to invest across many sectors, maturities, and geographies, spotting opportunities that others might miss. Vanguard takes a steady approach, focusing on reliability and consistency. So if you're looking to give your clients consistent results year in and year out, go see the record for yourself at vanguard.com/audio. That's vanguard.com/audio. All investing is subject to risk. Vanguard Marketing Corporation, distributor. One sponsored checkout is strawberry.me career coaching. Having real clarity and direction can make or break your career. If it seems like you're putting in the work but not seeing your career take off, some coaching might be just the ticket. Strawberry.me matches you with certified career coaches who help you gain clarity on what you really want next in your career, develop a results-driven strategy, and stay accountable. And they can also help you flourish beyond career issues. I had a fantastic session with my coach, Brett, about handling stress from so many responsibilities in so many areas. He was fun. He was wise. He just really got me. We had some laughs and a good time and a good rapport. And he gave me an exercise that has been so quick and so effective for me. I've been doing it every day. So if you're ready to take control and build momentum in your career, go to strawberry.me/awesome to claim your $50 credit. That's strawberry.me/awesome. Because awesome careers don't just happen, you make them happen. One sponsor to check out is Quince. That nip in the air means two things. One, decorative gourd season is approaching. And two, it's time to check inventory on fall staples and fill in any gaps. And Quince can help with that masterfully as they have all kinds of goodies you'll wear nonstop, such as a super soft 100% Mongolian cashmere sweater starting at $60. But that low price does not mean low quality. I've been loving my Quince beanie during these cooler temperatures. I treated that hat rough, but it keeps bouncing back and holding up like a champ. And Quince has really emerged as something of a go-to across the board. I keep seeing bags my wife orders from Quince appearing at our doorstep. So keep it classic and cool this fall with long-lasting staples from Quince. Go to quince.com/awesome for free shipping on your order and 365 days returns. That's QUINZE.com/awesome for free shipping and 365-day returns. One more time, quince.com/awesome. All right. Well, now could you share a favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
So this is not a famous quote unless you happen to be in Goju-Ryu karate. But the rules of the dojo that I practiced in with my oldest brother when we were teenagers and into college, they've really become guiding principles for me in pretty much everything I do. And then the last one is Sensei's word is law, which he will make you do duck walks around the dojo if you forget that one. But those middle three, I see them again and again. And it just reminds me when I'm not the best at something, I'm like, everybody starts at the bottom. You got to do the practice, do the work, move up. Everyone works. You don't age out of doing the work. You don't get promoted up above the work. Everyone works, and nothing is free. There's always a trade-off. There's always a cost. You have to determine whether it's one that's suitable for you.
Okay. And a favorite tool?
Favorite tool is the question. If I'm stuck on anything, I get a couple people together and we throw 100 questions at it, and I never have walked out without some forward progress.
Oh, that's beautiful. We had Hal Gregerson talk about question storming and how transformative that can be to unblock things. So
One
cool.
of my favorite practices. I talk about it in the book, and I've taken the class with Hal.
Oh, cool. And is there a key nugget you share that folks really love and quote back to you often?
It's say it ugly. So this is a mantra my teams use to remind ourselves that there's no ego, there's no holding back, there's no toes are going to get stepped on. Say it ugly. Put it on the table. We'll pretty it up together. Because if you keep it stuck in your head, it's not doing anybody any good. So just get it out quick and often.
All right. And if folks want to learn more or get in touch, where would you point them?
We're everywhere at this point, except TikTok. Haven't really...
You do some dances, get them worked up, choreography.
Pull out the old mascotting moves. LinkedIn is our favorite platform, not just because Microsoft owns it, but because we are predominantly a business conversation. So Dean and I are both on LinkedIn. The book is on LinkedIn, and you can follow us there. But we also have our website, innovation@microsoft.com, and we have a free insiders group where we share articles and new bonus chapters for free in the book. And we intend to keep it free forevermore. So if you just want a place to go and continuously learn about innovation and meet other innovators, we would love to see you there.
All right. And do you have a final challenge or call to action for folks looking to be awesome at their jobs?
Be honest with yourself. That's the final call to action.
Beautiful. JoAnn, thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate you having us on.
I really appreciated JoAnn's take about practicing curiosity daily and what that does to your brain. I've lived it, I've experienced it, and it also suggests, if I may, to not censor the curiosity. Like, oh, why am I wondering about that? It doesn't matter. It's not applicable to anything. And I'm thinking about Walter Isaacson's biography of Leonardo da Vinci here, because Leonardo, wow, definitely a contender for greatest of all time on the creative, innovative scale. And he was so fascinated and curious about everything. He spent hours, for example, digging into the mechanics of the tongue muscle in a woodpecker. Just 'cause he thought that was really interesting. He was curious and he dug into it. He ran it that way. And so you might say, well, who cares? Woodpeckers are just going to do what they're doing. Don't you have a lot of important things to invent and a lot of amazing art to create? And no, by digging into these things and indulging these curiosities nonstop, it really made some cool things happen in his brain. And I think I felt the same thing, is that the more I allow my brain to play, create, and explore in potentially totally unrelated areas, the more I'm getting cool ideas that, sure enough, surprise, do have carryover and application to whatever I'm working on. And even if they don't, by golly, it's just a fun way to live and learn and be in this world. So great stuff from JoAnn. If you want to check out the show notes or the transcript or the links to items that we've referenced, please drop on by awesomeatyourjob.com/EP1103. Hope to catch you next time, and peace.
You know how everything's a subscription now? Music, movies, even socks. I swear if
To continue this ad, please upgrade to Premium Plus Platinum.
What? No, anyway, Blue Apron...
This is a pay-per-listen ad. Please confirm your billing.
Oh, that's annoying. At least with the new Blue Apron, there's no subscription needed. Get delicious meals delivered without the weekly plan.
Wait, no subscription?
Keep the flavor. Ditch the subscription. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.